Okay, so this is going to be a crazy video. There is a ton of information to get into. A lot happened this week. We had the crypto summit at the White House with some of the biggest names in crypto. What is happening with altcoins and some of the key few charts that we need to be paying attention to as the year continues to go on. Trump signed an executive order to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve. US government's public wallets currently hold about 198,109 Bitcoin, around roughly $17 billion worth. The US government has also transferred about 222,000 BTC at the time of only 3.2 billion, which would currently be worth 19 billion to Coinbase Prime and other known wallets at the average of $14,000. So at current prices, the government has lost about 16.4 billion by selling Bitcoin prematurely. Now, this was Bitcoin that was taken from illicit activities and different legal matters. So they ended up selling a lot of that Bitcoin, which I know they're regretting now because once Bitcoin hits the astronomical price levels of 500K to a million and beyond, they're going to look back at it and look at it as a mistake. But nonetheless, we're making steps in the right direction with the Trump administration. So this is a positive for crypto. So in the last video, I made a claim about the Binance liquidations and how they play the markets and like to keep it in a certain range. What I said in the last video is that we stayed anywhere in between roughly the $82,000 level to around the $86,000 level, which we are currently playing around in. Yes, we're going to have some touches above that 90K level. Around 92.5 is where resistance holds at the moment. Like I did say in the last video, we tapped that line a few different times, and I'm going to show you that chart in just a second. But first, I want to show you the liquidation heat map. Now, this is for the Binance BTC USDT pair. Now, as you can see, these strong yellow lines are where a lot of liquidation levels are at. So around 87,000 to 88,000 is where a lot of liquidations are at. So I'm pretty sure Binance would like to wipe out these two levels here. And we have a bit of a liquidation level forming around the $84,000 level. This is exactly where I'd be. Nothing is shocking about this. Binance owns majority of the crypto assets on the planet. They're still the largest exchange on the planet, so they have a lot of control and they can manipulate the market to help them make fees off of people trading, going short or long, making these liquidations. And that's why this chart is so important. This is the liquidation heat map. So this is why this chart is so important. You need to be able to see where the potential levels that Bitcoin's price can go in the short term. So if you are trading, you can use some of these levels to trade off of. Now, this is more so an update more than anything, and this is the volume profile. Now, very interesting to see on the volume profile. We built this strong trend line that we obviously broke above. I spoke about it in the last video, but I want to zoom in, and I'll zoom in for you on the charts. Look at where we ended up touching on the chart, right? We ended up hitting that $94,000 level, just under 95,000. And this is where I told you we'd have a ton of resistance. And I wanted to show you the other peak just below it. We hit around 92.5. Now, if you had listened to me in the last video and you had taken along as we were under the 30 to the 20 level on the RSI, you would have made a good chunk of money on this trade as we touched exactly where I said we were going to touch. Now, playing these RSI levels, as you can see, would have worked out extremely well for you. We touched below the 30 to 20 level and we spiked above the 70 to 80 level. Very, very simple. And when you look at the actual chart, you can see here as well that we did the exact same thing. And we actually came to this volume node first, trying to push up back above this strong piece of resistance that we have here with this point of control. And then right under the POC, you can see here, we're at 92.5, which is where I thought we'd have the most resistance, which it looks like it's currently playing out at the moment. Now, if you look down here, we're currently trading on the $85,000 level, and it all makes sense because the chart is telling us that we have a lot of volume at these levels. So if we were to break below the $83,000 level, as you can see, we don't have any more real volume until around the 70,000s. So we probably end up passing below that CME gap. So I would say within the next week or two, it's very important that we stay above the current levels that we're at. I said we don't want to get below 82.5K or 83,000 because we could definitely see a spike back into the $70,000 range. And like I was saying, I'm not surprised at all because we did tap that 92.5 level. And I think if you're looking to get into a trade, I would definitely look to see the RSI drop back below these levels first and then see how it's trading around these volume nodes before you make your trades. Moving on, the fear and greed index is showing 28. Now, this is obviously way oversold, so still a great time to buy Bitcoin and some other stronger altcoins and crypto assets. The Problem with this is that if Bitcoin does drop into the $70,000 range, which is a strong possibility at this point, if we don't get a change in interest rates and this whole tariff situation with Mexico and Canada and Europe doesn't get figured out, and with China, then we probably end up seeing a lot lower prices for Bitcoin and definitely for altcoins as well. Now, as you know, Donald Trump made a ton of speeches this week, and there was a lot of key points that I took from a lot of what he said regarding crypto and the future of crypto in America and where he sees the US strategic reserve going in the long term. Now, Trump made a claim that he wants to use stable coins to distribute the US dollar across the globe to make it easier for all countries and all economies to access the US dollar. Now, I'm not sure if he's going to use USDT or USDC or any other stable coin for that matter. Most likely he would be using USDC because USDC is owned by Circle, which works with Coinbase, and Coinbase is the leader in this space when it comes to crypto at this point for the G7 nations and North America specifically. So it's going to be interesting to see how legislation plays out. I do think the Trump administration is extremely favorable for crypto. So I think it's smart to be able to use stablecoins because you can have instant finality cross-border transactions, and you're going to have a lot more demand for the US dollar because America's obviously experiencing a crisis like most of the world is right now with their currency, with inflation and other things. So I think this is an overall good thing for the US and ultimately crypto. Now, Brian Armstrong also attended the crypto summit. Sergey Nazarov, owner of Chainlink, was also there. Brad Garlinghouse, CEO and founder of XRP, the Winklevoss twins, founders of Gemini, and Michael Saylor, obviously the owner and founder of Strategy, were all present. And there was a lot of other big names as well, but these were the notable ones that I saw that were there. Didn't see Charles Hoskinson there. I don't know what happened with Cardano on that, but I'm sure that they will be brought into the fold as long as they do their dealings within America. Trump wants to house a lot of things in America, and that will possibly lead to more executive orders such as no capital gains tax and things like that. Now, the executive order was signed, so the strategic reserve is real. Now, Trump also stated that Operation Choke Point is absolutely dead in the water. This is something that former chairman of the SEC, Gary Gensler, had put in place to slow down crypto innovation and the asset class in America. So now that that is completely out the way, we don't have to worry about that as well. Trump also made a statement saying that digital assets such as Bitcoin and a few other altcoins will also be a part of the digital Fort Knox, which will be held with the Fed in the Treasury and controlled and operated by the government in tandem, I'm assuming, with the Fed as well. Now, to slightly shift gears, Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Fed, he decides whether interest rates go up, down, sideways, if they buy back bonds or not, whatever the case is. This is the guy who decides what's going to happen with the monetary policy. Now, he made a claim that in the short term, he doesn't see a reason as of right now to do anything as far as the economy. Inflation is ticking up slightly, so it's hard for me to see a rate cut coming in March. Now, one of the big factors that no one's really talking about is tariffs have a lot to do with that inflation per se, because as that 25% tax gets put on all these goods and services, obviously you're going to see prices in the stores get higher, which means you're also going to see debt getting a little bit higher for the people that have to purchase these particular goods and these services. Not to mention, you also have China who is printing now. China and Germany have started to print, and we can see global liquidity starting to tick up. So I'm sure that we'll see an effect in the markets come some point in April, I would say. And that would be even without the Fed raising interest rates because China is also an extremely large economy. And we are talking about a global asset class, which is crypto. So it's not solely reliant on the US, even though they are the biggest player. And ultimately, I think that they mostly decide what happens with the global economy because most of the trade that is done in the world is done in USD. And if these countries now have to print more money to fight off these tariffs, you're only going to see the global liquidity rise from this point forward. And I think this is also because he wants to push Jerome Powell to eventually lower interest rates, which, in my opinion, depending on what your viewpoint is on the economy, might be kind of hard to do because I can see inflation also going up in the short term. So even if we don't get interest rates lowered come mid March, in just a couple weeks, actually, we might see a situation where the other countries around the globe stimulate the economy. And by that assumption, you'll see asset prices start to rise. Not to mention that Europe is also gearing up to print as well this year. They also mentioned that they're going to have to start printing at some point this year as well. Now, the interesting part about it is that the market is pricing in 3 rate cuts as of right now for this year. So anybody that is getting impatient and leaving the markets and not paying attention to crypto, this is the worst time to do that. As I said before, the fear and greed index is at a all-time low, at least relative, right? 28 is pretty low on the fear and greed index. So if you're walking away and not paying attention to the markets right now, I would highly advise against it. What you want to be doing right now is filling up on those bags that you've been holding for a while now. As far as the MVRVZ score, we're still around that 2 point level. Just wanted to point that out as well. We haven't crossed over that neutral mark. So this is also another signifier that we are not in an altcoin season yet. And the numbers for the ISM haven't come out yet for the month of March. So I will give you an update on that as well when the time comes. And one thing I want to say before I wrap this video up is please leave a like on the video. It helps get the video out to more people that need this information, that need to understand where we are in the market so that they can protect themselves, and not only protect themselves, but also be able to buy cheap Bitcoin or other cheap altcoins while the market is still down, because we're not always going to be here. So if you were blessed and fortunate enough to find this video and it helped you out in any way, I would like you to pass the favor on to somebody else in your life. So a like and a share would do wonders for not only myself as well to help grow my channel, but also for the other people that need this information. And another thing that I want to make note of is that I am creating a Discord for us to talk about with community members. So if that's something that interests you, that's coming out in the next couple of weeks, I will obviously let you know on these videos. So subscribe for that so you don't miss that. There will be opportunities in there with market trends, because it's hard for me to make a video at the day of or when something happens. So instead, I want to make a Discord where I can quickly write up what I'm seeing on a day-to-day basis, on an hour-to-hour basis, to keep you updated. So if that's something that you'll be interested in, just leave a comment on the video for me, please. I will greatly appreciate that. Now, if you need help figuring out what altcoins to buy in this market dip, watch my perfect altcoin video. I'll post it somewhere up here. But other than that, love you guys. Thanks for the support, and I'll see you in the next one.